Yeah, no, yeah. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Indigenous and Transcultural Research Centre Partnership Series. My name is Catherine Manathanga, and we are delighted in the ITRC to welcome a colleague from the Canterbury Institute of Management in Darwin to speak with us this morning. But first of all, I would like to acknowledge that I'm zooming into you today from Gubbi Gubbi country on the beautiful Sunshine Coast, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. This is a space of age-old wisdom and education, and we hope that this rich history and ongoing dialogue will infuse our discussions today. And of course, this land was never ceded, and I acknowledge all of the lands that you are zooming into from today as well. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Ahmad Usman Shahid, who's the Program Director of Accounting at Canterbury Institute of Management at the Darwin campus, who'll be presenting on intrinsic religiosity, social consciousness, and socially responsive investment. Over to you, Ahmad.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Catherine. First of all, I will say thanks to Professor Maria, Professor Catherine, Gail, and University of Sunshine Coast for giving me the opportunity to present my research at this seminar. So, as you have already told my topic, let me just share a screen with you. Yeah, so this is my research paper, which I wrote in my PhD at Macquarie University, and the title is Intrinsic Religiosity, Social Consciousness, and Socially Responsible Investment Decisions. So first of all, I will define what are these terms, right? And before that, I will tell you the objective of my study, which is that this study examines whether and how professional accountants and junior business executives socially responsible investment decisions are influenced by their Islamic religiosity in the context of a profitable firm that is alleged by the media for employing child labor in hazardous work in some areas in Pakistan. So we will go into further detail after that. And the secondary purpose of this study is to examine whether and how participants' social consciousness and their relevance or perception of media, how they serially mediate between their Islamic religiosity and socially responsible investing decisions. Right. So before going into further detail, I will show you that how I worked on this paper. So you can see that this is my intrinsic religiosity, and I want to test the impact of intrinsic religiosity in an Islamic culture on socially responsible investing decisions, that how people make investing decisions in a religious context. And furthermore, I also want to see whether and how socially consciousness or socially conscious individuals, that how it mediates the relationship between intrinsic religiosity and socially responsible investing decisions. So as we all know that Pakistan is a developing country, and media also plays a vital role in almost every context of life. So we also tested whether and how perceived relevance of media may impact decisions of investors, right? And how they mediate between their religiosity and making their investment decisions. So we have some control variables which we have already tested. So now let's see in greater detail that what is socially responsible investing. So socially responsible investing, it refers to value-based investing or impact investing, which specifically takes into account the social, environmental, and governance and ethical consideration of the firms into investment decisions, so that investors try not to avert, investors try to avert investing in firms that may have serious catastrophic consequences on both environment and society, because we live in a society and therefore we have to take care about the impact of our corporate conduct on both environment, people, and society. right? So that's what is socially responsible investing in my context. And then we have discussed the concept of religiosity or Islamic religiosity. So religiosity, we can say that it is a degree to which a person specifically stick to or adheres to his or her religious beliefs, values, and practices, and use these values, beliefs, and practices in their daily life and making decisions, right? So we will take it further to Islamic religiosity, because you know that Pakistan is an Islamic country where 96.4% population is based on Muslim community. And therefore, we try to relate it with our Islamic religiosity, which is grounded on core Islamic principle and refers to individuals in enduring, stable, and intrinsically held values, right? So this is related to, I mean, we can also relate it to our culture, because all the cultural values are based on these religious values in the context of Pakistan. So we have to take care of these values while living in a religious country or while living in a religious culture. So that are interlinked, and they definitely influence our decisions, that how our values and beliefs may help us in defining our actions and decisions, right? So that's how we will see our Islamic religiosity or intrinsic Islamic religiosity. And my third variable of interest, which I have shown you earlier, is social consciousness, right? So social consciousness is our consciousness about society and people and our community. That's how we will, I mean, how we will consider different social issues and how we will react, right? So our social consciousness may help us in making ethical decisions whenever we face a, I mean, context, specific context. And in this scenario, our context is the employment of child labor under hazardous conditions, right? So we need to consider our consciousness related to companies who are highly profitable, but they are alleged by media for employing children in hazardous works, right? So in the same way, we also want to test the impact of media, that how these media reports, right, just like newspapers or uh, I mean other media channels, how they influence this decision making pattern. While on one side we are, I mean, some people are religious, some are not, and on other side they are also socially consciousness, and then they also need to see what media says for making their investment decisions. So that's a mixture we wanted to text in this in this study, right? So now we will go into further detail that why we are focusing on socially responsible investing decisions. So we can say that in prior research also a focus that socially responsible investing is a form of activism where individuals, including investors and professionals, they adopt a way of investing so that they can encourage all the corporations to create a positive social impact and foster social change. For example, there are many companies in Pakistan who used to uh, put their industrial waste into nearby river, but after some, I mean, legislations, they started to, I mean, put their industrial waste after cleaning that, right? So that they can create some positive social impact, which may have impact on society, and it may definitely reduce the pollution, water pollution. So they try to dump clean water into the river, not the industrial waste. So that's how they work there. So why we are working was studying this concept, because when we talk about investment, then investors are mostly relate their earning to risk and return trade-off, right? Which is conventional in our investment types. But there are some investors, and in the recent years, they specifically try to get direct utility from socially responsible attributes of their investment, right? So they want to know that the firm in which they want to invest, what the firm is doing for the betterment of society and environments. That's what they want to know about their sustainability. Therefore, in almost every country, big firms, they release non-financial information in their annual reports in the form of social, environmental, and governance performance, right? Still, they are, we can say, they are doing not that much, but still they are on the track. And in few years, they will be, they will perform better. And in this way, the stakeholders, including investors, will try to invest their money into these companies who are returning something to the society from where they are generating a profit, right? So prior studies have emphasized on the importance of understanding socially responsible investing decisions so that they can develop and analyze potential financial products and markets. So when we talk about socially responsible investing, it's not that much into our markets, whether in developed countries and developing countries. So researchers have emphasized that there should be something which we can really focus on for the betterment of our society, because we live in a community and everyone should work for the betterment of their community and society, both on a small scale and large scale as well, right? So prior studies, when we talk about socially responsible investment decisions, they have considered investors profile, that how they make decisions, whether they are experienced or not experienced, how they make, and what is the role of gender and education in making their socially responsible investment, and then the level of social identification, that how they are connected with our society and how they are politically affiliated with each other, and how they are linked with religion for making their for examining this context. In prior research, they also focus that they also provide evidence that intrinsic social preferences, this is the main term which we are um, focusing in this study, because these are intrinsic preferences within ourselves, within our heart, within our mind, which plays a dominant role. And they also call for examining values, like our personal values, our intrinsic values that may drive individuals socially responsible investing decisions, right? So let's say if I am ethical, more ethical or highly ethical, if I am more religious, then I will try not to invest any firm which is employing children for hazardous works, right? So that's how we try to bridge the gap between socially responsible investment, ethics, and religion and culture. So as I have mentioned earlier, we examined socially responsible investment decisions in the context of employment of child labor, because prior studies, they have largely examined the social and environmental aspects of corporate social responsibility and sustainability. However, a social aspects of CSR or sustainability, they have largely been ignored, right? So in this context, our social aspect is child labor in developing countries, because child labor is the subject of widespread societal concerns. And this dilemma has received attention from global regulatory bodies, just like International Labor Organization and United Nations Commission for Human Rights. So they are very serious about that. And in this way, to tackle this employment of child labor, United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 8.7, they specifically call on the world to take effective measures to eradicate the worst form of child labor by 2025. We are on that track. We are making policies in developing countries, but still we need to do more, right? So as per estimation of International Labor Organization, which estimates that there are 246 million child laborers worldwide, with 179 employed in hazardous works. Hazardous work means all those works which may affect the children both psychologically and physically, right? So that's how we will define hazardous works. When we talk about Pakistan, and as per Global Slavery Index of 2023, Pakistan ranks fourth among 27 countries in Asia in the prevalence of child labor and employs almost 19 million children, which is very high in this context because population of Pakistan is also very high, we can say, which is 240 million people. And then, therefore, Pakistan comes under severe criticism for employing child labor in industries because it may have drastic effect on the health, on physical and psychological health of the children. As per the estimate of Pakistan Bureau of Statistics, 12.5 million children which are aged in between 4 to 14 work under brutal conditions in factories, right? So therefore, we need to make some policies there. Pakistan enacted legislations both at provincial level and country level, in national level, we can say, but still companies continue to employ children because of poverty and we can say the weaker governance system within the country. So therefore, they keep hiring. And there are some also other reasons because sometimes people put their children into hazardous work so that they can earn some money for their to support their families, right? So that's how they work. And sometimes they want to teach some basic skills to these children so that they can, when they grow up, they have, I mean, some skills or expertise to work in the market to earn some money. So these are some of the reasons which I will uncover in my coming slides. So next one is about religion and religiosity. So, as I have discussed earlier, Pakistan is an Islamic state, Islamic country where the religion of almost 96.4% population is Islam. So we can see that religion enters freely into everyone's life there and becomes part of normative system. Right? When we talk about Islam, Islam guides Muslim in every aspect of life, including their financial and non-financial investment decisions, right? And the impact of Islam and Islamic markets is spreading globally. So Islamic financial markets, Islamic banking system, which is worth over 2.7 trillion US dollars as per the report of Reuters. And therefore, studies and researchers have called to examine whether and how Islam influences socially responsible investing decisions because it is going global now into the business as well. So Islamic stakeholders are often ignored in decision making and in research. So this study is a little attempt to unpack this gap in our research, right? So we can, when we talk about religion, then this is highly personal and we cannot impose our personal religion with anyone, right? So that's how it works in Islam, in Pakistan as well. And therefore, its influence or on investors' decision, it also depends on person's degree of religiosity, right? So for example, let's say if I am not a highly religious, or we can say if I stand low on religiosity, then that's my personal choice and we cannot impose on each other. So that's how this religion works in Pakistan. It's their own choice, it's their own degree of religiosity, that how much they are adherent to the religion, right? So Pakistan, we can say, is we deem that we feel that is an appropriate context to study this religiosity because there are other Islamic countries, including Bangladesh, India, and there are many other countries. We can go there as well, but it was because I have seen many circumstances in Pakistan. So therefore, it was my intention to unpack this and provide some suggestions to regulators. So uh, when we specifically talk about religiosity, so religiosity is our intrinsic commitment to religion. So in prior research, when we talk about religiosity, it is being widely operationalized in accounting and finance research using unidimensional measures such as religious affiliations, church attendance, and church membership or general archival databases, right? These studies provide useful insights, uh, but the issue is that these studies do not measure individual value-based religiosity and ignore possible within country variations in terms of religiosity. So that's why we try to focus specifically on individuals' intrinsic values, intrinsic religiosity, so that we can try to make the link between intrinsic value and their intrinsic socially responsible investing decisions, right? So intrinsic religiosity, as I have mentioned earlier, is a motivation which is driven by core values of religious orientation to reflect to spirit of individuals' religious beliefs in their actions. So prior studies have used dimensions of religiosity as intrinsic religiosity and extrinsic religiosity, right? So in the same way, we have followed our same concept, same approach, but this time we are specifically talking about Islamic religiosity, because that's a general religiosity which have been unpacked in prior research. In our study, we are specifically talking about Islamic religiosity, and we are following a framework which is Muslim religiosity personality inventory to measure intrinsic Islamic religiosity. So Muslim religiosity personality inventory contains two dimensions. One is Islamic worldview, which is just like our intrinsic Islamic religiosity. And the other is Islamic religious personality, which is just like our extrinsic religiosity. So in intrinsic religiosity, people are more committed to religion and follow the advices of religion to give benefit to the society and their surroundings. However, in extrinsic religiosity, they just show off that they are following religion, but in the deeper inside, they don't do that. So that's the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic religiosity. And we try to bridge the gap between intrinsic religiosity with our Islamic worldview, which is our intrinsic commitment to follow basic Islamic values, and which states that we have to behave ethical. We don't need to provide harm to anyone. We have to do something good for our society and environment. So that's the basic theme in this religiosity. So as I have mentioned earlier, Islamic worldview is the manifestation of intrinsic religiosity, and it represents deeply held, core, and enduring values which are embedded in our basic Islamic principles. So this selection of Islamic worldview is also consistent with prior research of intrinsic religiosity, right? In shaping individuals' social, personal, and professional ethos and their decisions in various contexts. So that's why we are specifically focusing on intrinsic values, because we have to consider the impact of these intrinsic values on our society, on our socially responsible investment decision-making pattern. So social consciousness, as I have mentioned earlier, it enables individuals to be aware of how their actions may affect others and how others' action may affect them. So prior research suggests that core religious beliefs, when we follow some religious beliefs, they generate more social consciousness and more social responsibility and strengthen individuals' social consciousness. So we can say that in the same way, uh, individuals' perceived social consciousness, they may play an intermediary role in their ethical decision making or in business decisions as well, right? So media, this is the most controversial variable in this study, because prior research has also recognized the critical role of media disclosures in disseminating corporate information. So when we talk about media, then it includes annual reports of companies as well, which are easily available on their websites. And sometimes companies also publish their annual reports in newspapers, right? So in this way, professionals get access to firms' CSR information, such as their environmental practices, their social practices through media reports, and then they can use this information in their decision making pattern. And these media reports may also play a critical role in influencing investment decisions. So we must be very careful with the positive news and negative news which media may generate in our society. So we need to verify that before making our decisions. So these were the background for selecting the variables of our study. And in this study, we have selected two samples. First sample consists of professional accountants, and second one is business executives. So prior studies, prior research suggests that using two appropriate sample groups improves the validity and generalizability of the findings. So therefore, we selected these two samples for our study. Why we studied professional accountants? Because the critical role of accountants in managing the risks and challenges of companies' social and environmental responsibilities, it has been recognized by global bodies such as United Nations Global Reporting Initiative, which is the initiative for making for developing standards for non-financial information, and then the International Auditing and Assurance Standard Board, we can call it IAASB, which makes standard for assurance, just like our audit, right? So that's why these accountants play a vital role in tackling corporate social and environmental challenges because they know what is financial and non-financial performance of the company. So they have the potential to influence the decisions of the firms. And on the other way around, why we selected business executives? Because these business executives, they are likely to be future leaders and who will play an influential role in shaping and changing companies' activities related to their social performance and environmental performance and collective social values. And they may also play an important role in enhancement of SRI or socially responsible investment within a society. And then it will further develop and we will be on track in coming years, maybe 5 to 10 years, right? So as I have mentioned earlier, this is our theoretical framework. We developed this framework based on some theories, which I will discuss in further in next slide. So we took help from our social identity theory. This theory states that individuals tend to conform to religious social norms of the group they associate with largely because of shared common identity. Let's say if we are living in a society where they have shared values, then we cannot go against those values, right? We need to make our decisions consistent with the traditions and customs of our group or community, right? So therefore, this study states that when we talk about Islamic religiosity, then we also need to consider the traditions, customs, beliefs, and values of Islamic worldview so that we can match it with our society and we do not want to go against this culture or this religion. So in our study, we further categorized our Islamic worldview into higher and lower levels. For example, if someone is scoring high on Islamic worldview scale, we will say that he or she is high on Islamic or simple religiosity. And if he's lower on the mean and median, then we can say that they are low on religiosity, we can say, right? So similarly, high religiosity means higher bonding with the society and for the benefit of society, and lower means weaker social identity within the group. And in the same way, we also took help from the Islamic principle of Umala. Umala means Islam strictly prohibits the employment of children for hazardous works, but still, due to weaker governance system within developing countries, just like Pakistan, people don't follow these practices in greater, we can say, detail. And then we also took help from our attribution theory for our CSR and media stuff, which this theory explores that how individuals or how investors interpret and explain the causes of behaviors, events, and outcomes. And it further explain how and why stakeholders attribute certain motives to firm CSR practices and communication. So these motives are important because we need to be very careful about CSR practices when we are investing in any society. So we need to be very careful. And we also need to be careful about the communication they will give us. So researchers also suggest that an individual's motivation and innate desire to actively search for and process relevant information influence their decisions. So that's why we can say that there is some connection with that, which we try to build on this attribution theory. And the last theory which we took help, it's the traditional theory or conventional theory of accounting, which states that only risk and return primarily drives investing decisions. But we say that it doesn't always hold true. We need to consider our intrinsic values, which are, because we live in a society, we need to we need to focus on social values as well, so that which drives our decision. So we go against this theory to develop our hypothesis. So based on these theories, we developed our hypothesis. For example, our first hypothesis is that professionals' Islamic worldview scores are positively associated with their SRA decision. So this is the impact, direct impact, because we say that if a person is highly religious, then he will try to behave ethically. He will try to take care of the interests of broader community and society, and he will try not to harm anyone. So in this way, he will try to follow the Islamic principle of Umala because he is highly religious. So that's why we will say that he will definitely try not to invest in any firm which is highly profitable, but violating the principle of Umala, or employing children in hazardous works which may harm them both socially, physically, and psychologically. And our second hypothesis is about the mediating hypothesis. So professionals' perceived level of social consciousness, it mediates the relationship between intrinsic religiosity and socially responsible investing decisions. So researchers also suggest that when making ethical decisions, socially conscious individuals, they are more likely to be aware of firms' social practices, and therefore they are more likely to believe in their power to bring social change. So we can say that their social consciousness in this way may mediate between their intrinsic values and their socially responsible investing decisions, right? So based on that, we developed our second hypothesis, which is a mediating hypothesis, stating that social consciousness mediates the relationship between their intrinsic Islamic worldview and socially responsible decisions. And our third hypothesis is based on perceived relevance of media allegations, which mediates between intrinsic religiosity and socially responsible investing decisions. So prior research, they have recognized the critical role of media disclosures in disseminating corporate information. So in addition to firms' financial disclosures, professionals also gain access to firms' CSR information, such as social practices, and through media reports, and they may use this information in their decision making, right? So based on attribution theory, which I have just explained, researchers have addressed the complexity of stakeholders' response to CSR information and their initiative. So this theory further explains how and why stakeholders attribute certain motives to firms' CSR practices and communication. So specifically, we say that researchers have also suggested that an individual's motivation and innate desire to actively search for and process relevant information, it influences their decisions. So individuals' perceived relevance of media allegations may vary depending on their motivation, right? So the last point here is individuals who perceive that a specific piece of information is of great relevance, they engage in higher cognitive efforts and thoughtful comprehension of the information, which influences their decisions. And we try to connect it with the religiosity in such a way. And evidence also shows that individuals with stronger religious beliefs, they pay more attention to social issues and social welfare, right? And specifically, media reports are valued more by people with higher religiosity. Research states that, right? So we suggest that professionals with a stronger or higher Islamic worldview, they are more likely or less likely to perceive media allegations to be of greater relevance, and therefore perceived relevance of media allegation is likely to be further reflected in their SRI or socially responsible investing decision. So based on that, we developed this hypothesis. So next, we developed a research question as per the suggestions of some of the editors for the journals. We tried to develop a research question where we tried to develop the link between serial mediation of social consciousness and media allegations. We tried to test whether and how uh, social consciousness and our relevance of media allegations serially mediates between professionals' Islamic worldview and their socially responsible investing decisions. However, we did not get the significant result for that, but we tried to follow the suggestions of the editors, because editors or reviewers, they are always right. So uh, let's see our research method. We conducted extensive pilot testing before going into our data analysis, and based on the results of pilot testing, we conducted final analysis. Our population was professional accountants and business executives, and then our sample was population was Pakistan, and our sample was professional accountants and business executives, and we developed a research instrument, right? We adopted the scales of Islamic religiosity and socially responsible investing decisions and social consciousness and relevance of media. So for measuring our socially responsible investing decisions, we developed a scenario, right? So prior studies have also stressed on the importance of developing scenarios, because in this way we can attract the multifaceted dynamics of the society. We can try to match it with real world. So based on that scenario, we developed a situation where there was a company which was highly profitable and all the financial indicators of that company was favorable. But the company got engaged in some allegations. Leading newspaper of the country alleged that the company is violating labor laws and employing children for hazardous works at one of their manufacturing sites. And after that, we left it blank. We did not added response of the companies to test whether and how the people will make their socially responsible investing decisions. So these are the demographics of our respondents for professional accountants and business executives. So you can see that they all have at least some investing experience of buying and selling shares. So they have or at least 2 years of buying and selling stocks in stock market, and they must have at least 3 years of experience, right? So that's how we set the criteria to select our respondents. And these are the results of these are the descriptive statistics for our Islamic worldview, because we tried to examine the impact of both continuous and categorical variables of Islamic worldview. So we categorized Islamic worldview into stronger and weaker, and we found that those people who score higher on Islamic worldview, they are less likely to invest in the firm which is employing children for hazardous works. And we found the vice versa results for weaker. And we also find the direct impact of Islamic worldview on socially responsible investing decisions, which was negative, right? So our results were consistent for professional accountants and business executives. And after that, as I have mentioned, we applied some simple regression to test the impact of Islamic worldview or on SRA decisions. I forgot to mention that what were the techniques we used. We used simple regression, we used ANOVA and MANOVA, and then we used process macros for mediation. So for mediation, we find that social consciousness mediates the relationship between Islamic religiosity, Islamic worldview, or socially responsible investing decisions. However, this mediating effect is not that much significant when we talk about media relevance, right? And but when we talk about our research question, where we wanted to test the serial mediation of social consciousness and relevance of media allegation, then we did not find any serial mediation in that context, right? So that's how we try to find something new for our study. So these are the results which I have just explained. So for media, for our serial mediation, one more finding which we see that our results show that social consciousness correlates to their perceived relevance of media allegation. But the serial mediation effect of social consciousness and media allegation is not significant. Why? The reason might be the low level of trust and high level of skepticism about media reports in Pakistan. That may explain why perceived relevance of media allegations is not reflected in their socially responsible investing decisions, right? So that's all we have done in this study. So we have mentioned the purpose, that the purpose was to examine the impact of Islamic religiosity on socially responsible investing decisions via social consciousness and media relevance. And then that's how we concluded. And we also have some future recommendations for both stakeholders and for our regulators and for researchers, right? So our findings may interest our regulators, just like our Global Reporting Initiative, International Integrated Reporting Council, World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and United Nations Commission for Human Rights in developing and implementing strategies and guidelines on social practices. So recognizing the critical role of intrinsic religiosity, raising social consciousness, and collaborating with religious institutions and the media, that is essential in tackling deeply entrenched social practices in a developing country, right? So we also need to make some strategies when we talk about global supply chains, because these supply chains are most of the times involved in hiring children as hazardous work. So our studies may also interest professional firms that provide assurance services to the companies on firms' corporate social responsibilities, right? And therefore, firms may also consider appointing experts to monitor and evaluate their social practices. So our findings will also interest activist investors to promote ethical and social practices and hold firms accountable to stakeholders. And obviously, we also have some sort of limitations in this study. The first limitation is that we conducted this study only in the context of Pakistan. So we may compare it with other countries just like Bangladesh, Saudi Arabia, and other Middle Eastern countries, right? So that we can improve the generalizability of our results. So in this way, we also have some suggestion in the context of increased globalization and cross-cultural interactions. Future research may be conducted to examine the impact of religious values on socially responsible investing decisions, both within and across different countries. So that's the crux of my study, which I presented here. There are many things which I did not discuss because that was too much. Therefore, I try to avoid that. If you have any suggestion, any question, and I'm happy to answer that.
People have many questions. So, and if you are